Hey there YouTube, welcome to actually a video that I've been tagged in by Wargaming with Garry, and of course this is the first time I've ever really been on camera, and I'm going to basically talk about three of my hobbies outside of wargaming and sort of history and military history and all that sort of stuff, which I kind of sort of all count as one thing, because really my sort of wargaming sprung from my interest in military history. So where I could theoretically count that as one of my major hobbies, I'm not going to in this circumstance. So basically, probably aside from wargaming, probably my most active hobby is probably what you can see behind me here. I'm sat in my sort of spare room here, and it's basically collecting movies and physical media. I've basically been doing it since when I got my very first DVD back in, I think it was 1999. Actually no, earlier than that, 1997 it would have been, when basically DVDs had more or less literally just come into Britain, really. I was lucky enough to have basically brought a new PC maybe 6 months before starting university, and it just happened to have one of these new fandangled DVD ROM drives, and while I was at university I made quite a few sort of friends that are from America, and obviously DVDs had been around quite a few more years than they'd been over here, so a lot of contacts I made through those guys basically started my collection off. And I've more or less been collecting films ever since, really. I mean, even through my most, not trying to sort of play a violin here or anything, but obviously my disposable income has shrunk and shrunk, and really only out of all my hobbies that I do, really only wargaming and still collecting the odd film and stuff are really only the things that I still really actively do, although that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have other hobbies. So yes, this is my first non-wargaming hobby, and it's literally, like I say, physical media. I'm not into all this Netflix streaming rubbish. I like to have a film in its physical form. I like all sorts of films. Obviously military films, war films are obviously high on the list. But I like sci-fi, I like anime, I like superhero movies, horror films, especially zombie films. I'm a big George Romero fan, and yes, that's one of my major hobbies. I still really collect. I think that the last couple of films I got were I think they're around here actually. Yeah, so the last two films I literally picked up were Alita Battle Angel and Captain Marvel here. So yeah, that's one of my probably my main major hobby behind wargaming that I still actively participate in. Now for other hobbies, my second hobby is 1/6 scale military figures. I think I got my very first figure probably sometime in the maybe early 90s. It was a bog standard German infantryman by a company called Dragon, and throughout all that time I was quite heavily into it at the time, because obviously I was had a full-time job. I was pretty mobile. And I used to collect them at quite a rate, and also obviously the price was a lot more favourable back in those days. And I'd say that probably the last figure I got was maybe 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And since then I haven't really got anything new, but that doesn't stop me from obviously doing stuff with all the figures that I have got. Now obviously I'm not really going to sort of go into depth with any of like showing you any of my collection shelves or anything like that, but I just brought like 3 figures out from random time periods just to sort of show you. Now here's one. Obviously it's Napoleonic Highlander, and great figure. I don't have that many Napoleonic guys in my collection, to tell the truth. I think I've got 4 or 5. But it's a really nice figure. It's by a company called DID, which I've got to say aren't exactly the best actual sort of human body sculpts. I've certainly got better companies' figures around, but DID are pretty good for their equipment and stuff. His musket is actually made out of metal and wood. You've got leather on the strapping here, and he is fully kitted out with his water bottle and his cartridge case and his backpack, obviously, and his bread bag, and of course his bayonet. And you can actually remove the bayonet and mount it on his musket if you wish. And of course his bear skin is kind of faux fur, I guess you'd call it. But yeah, that's one example. So we've got somebody from the Napoleonic Wars there. Next up, we jump to World War II, and we have this figure is actually a custom figure. I do have a lot of Germans. I've probably got enough for an entire platoon of Germans, and I've actually, and oddly enough, although weirdly enough I suppose you could say, is that for a lot of them I actually made up like personas for them. So they've all got names and they've all got ranks, and some of them have actually like progressed from the time that I had them. Like this particular guy, when I got him, was originally just a straight up lieutenant, and he's now a first lieutenant. Let's try and get him into camera there so you can see his rank tab there, first or standard lieutenant instead of second lieutenant, and he's obviously got quite a few awards. A lot of which were put on after the fact. I think when I originally got him, he literally just had the Iron Cross and the Iron Cross second class. So he's got like the bronze close combat clasp there, and the close assault I can't remember what it's called actually. It's the assault badge, something like that, or combat badge. I can't remember. And of course a ribbon and a knight's cross with oak leaves and cross swords, so he's quite a heroic chap, this guy. And he's also, his gear's also changed quite a bit over the years since I've had him. Now, I've had this guy quite a long time. He started off with an MP40. I think he's had like 3 different types of MP40 as they sort of like got better and better over time. And his final iteration is a Sturmgewehr 44, which of course is the assault rifle. And again, obviously his gear changes so his magazine pouches have changed. And he's fully kitted out. He's got a flare gun, he's got his water bottle, he's got his bread bag, he's got a bag here, an extra bag with some grenades in. He's got a map case, he's got his bread bag down here which has actually got stuff inside, some food items and a pipe. And his pistol, his P38, is in the holster here, and his gas mask pouch, which is filled with egg grenades and not a gas mask, because we all know that in the sort of late war the Germans had already dumped. Actually thinking about it, this guy's got an FN pistol, the sort of like the World War II version of the 9mm Browning, and he's got like a spare magazine slotted into his magazine pouch there, and he's also got a spare one in his actual holster as well. And of course he's got a captured British compass on the front of him there. So yeah, that's a German from my sort of German collection. These guys, I really do have a sort of like a great fondness for these guys, and like I say, I was obviously hardcore into them enough that I actually created personas for them all, but I won't bore you all by telling you this chap's name. So that is a German. And then for a final view, I decided to go ultra modern. So here we have a crack up to date Navy SEAL. He's got all the Gucci modern stuff. He's got the up to date night vision. He's got a really nice H&K 416 rifle. He's got Magpul magazines, both on his leg and on his chest, and he's got a backpack and some other various assorted pouches, grenade pouches and stuff like that, and obviously he's got a pistol on the side. I believe nowadays the ultra modern Navy SEALs will probably have a Glock, but this guy is just sort of prior to that, so he's got a P226 Sig Sauer. So that is kind of my 1/6 scale hobby. Now, obviously, I do actually have loads and loads of hobbies, but I thought out of all the remaining hobbies that I could have talked about, I thought I'd talk about my sort of Star Wars hobby, because I have been and I still am a massive Star Wars fan. I mean, obviously I'm a big science fiction fan in general, but Star Wars has always held a special place in my heart. I don't really game it that much. I mean, I do have quite a big X-Wing collection, and I have played many games of X-Wing. This is version 1, by the way, that I obviously still have, and I haven't played it for a long time, but I did enjoy playing it. It's one of those games that you don't think would actually play that well solo, but I actually found it quite a lot of fun. And then of course I sort of semi-delved into Legion, and to tell the truth, it looks a really good game. I haven't actually played a game yet, but I've painted up all the miniatures that came in the starter set, and I've got to say, it looks a really good game. Like I say, I haven't played it, but the thing that kind of turned me off was the ridiculous pricing. You're talking, I think I've probably mentioned this before in I think my mountain video, the prices for Legion stuff is ridiculous, and it completely turned me off of the game, really. I mean, I still am interested in playing it at some point, and maybe in the future, if I ever get a chance to get stuff on sale, maybe I will. But yeah, so basically getting back to Star Wars other than Wargaming, obviously I own the films. I own numerous iterations of the films. I think I've basically got every version since they last came out on, the special editions came out on VHS a long time ago. I then picked up the sets when they first came out on DVD. Obviously I got the 3 prequel films when they came out, and of course when they came out on Blu-ray, it was one of those, I think it's the only Blu-ray I've ever pre-ordered like practically a year in advance, and it holds quite a lot of esteem. Here it is here, in fact, quite a lot of esteem in my collection. When they came out, the complete saga came out on Blu-ray. Now I don't have 4K ability, and I don't have 3D, so there's really no point to me getting 4K versions or 3D versions of films. But I believe that next year they're actually releasing all the Star Wars films, or at least the originals. I don't know if that includes the prequels as well, are all coming out in 4K, so that would be really cool if you happen to have a 4K TV. And of course I also collect Star Wars figures, like the 3 3/4 inch. I went for a period, obviously I'm not really into like the really old vintage figures anymore, but there was a point where it's probably the, I don't know, maybe 2000s onwards, they started bringing out the figures with like multiple articulation, and I really sort of went hardcore back into collecting sort of 3 3/4 inch Star Wars figures again. And it even went to the point where I was actually buying them to actually hang on my wall. And on my bedroom wall I've actually got like probably 20 or 30 figures in like protective cartons and hung up on my wall. So, you know, you could say that whether I'm a figure collector or just comes under like the general sort of Star Wars fandom, you know, I mean that's sort of hard to say really, but yeah, probably for a good, probably 7 or 8 years, I went through a bout of more or less. This was actually before I got back into wargaming. I was kind of really focusing on collecting Star Wars figures, and basically another sort of facet, and probably the sort of final thing I'll show you before that, before I sort of tag out 3 more luckier participants to continue this talk about hobbies other than wargaming. I'm basically going to unbind my camera here, and I'm basically going to show you my little Star Wars autograph collection, which I'm actually quite proud of, and is probably one of the sort of big pinnacles of my collection really. So I'm going to stand up, and I'm basically going to bring you in the background there. You can see some of my my Lego galleons and stuff, but that obviously did not come into the fold of being classed as one of the hobbies for this particular video. And we're going to basically come out of the spare room, and I'm going to spin the camera around, and also, so let's spin this round. So here's my little modest Star Wars autograph collection. So here we have the guy who basically in Star Wars A New Hope, in fact actually you can see his quote written on the photo there, get a scanning crew on board, I want every part of this ship checked. And it's a really great photo. And then of course there's a picture of me with the guy. He was a very nice chap. Next up we've got the guy who played Green Greedo. I think his name is, I can't make it out, Paul, possibly Paul, no I can't make it out. But there's the guy that played Green Greedo, and probably now the 2 most treasured autographs in my collection. So here we have Mark Hamill with a great photo. I really do like this photo, him on his old Tauntaun. And probably the one that's most special to my heart was Carrie Fisher. This one will definitely be one of my favourites, obviously now that she's passed on. And again, I think I picked a really great picture as well. Obviously a lot of guys were going for the classic, you know, her Jabba gear, stuff like that, but I thought I'd go a little bit different and choose her in her general's outfit. So, okay, so let's, here's some more DVDs and stuff. So we'll go back into my spare room here, and I'll attempt to put the camera back on the tripod here, and now comes the part which I probably find the most difficult of this video, is to actually nominate 3 people to continue this hobby, look into sort of other hobbies other than wargaming, continuing on. Now, I felt kind of odd doing this because obviously I've never really met anyone. I mean, this is the first time I've ever actually been on camera for starters. But I chose 3 people that I've probably had the most interaction with, and I feel that out of everyone within the community that I've sort of spoken to. And to tell the truth, I've only really spoken to people through replying to notifications and stuff. So I'm tagging Lee Hughes. As far as sort of notification chats go, I've had probably the most interaction with this chap. Great chap, really good painter, and it sounds like he's a really nice guy. Secondly, Ralph Astley. I think he was probably the first person in the community who I was actually sort of answering back comments to, and I through that I kind of feel like he's one of the few that I sort of have the most sort of affiliation with, as sort of like obviously I've never met the chap, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't like to. Obviously I'd love to meet a whole bunch of guys. And then the third guy, again, I've had a lot of interaction with this guy, and he kindly sent me through his Napoleonic rules to look through, and I'm really looking forward to trying them out actually. And that's Leon T66. So I hope you guys don't find it too offensive that I've tagged you, and I hope you kind of enjoyed this video. And of course, thanks to Garry. He gave me quite a good little shout out on his channel. I appreciate it. I don't really do this, I never really started this channel for subscribers, but I've got to admit that subscribers do, they certainly cheer you up, and of course it's more people that that allow for more interaction on notifications and stuff. So yes, of course, I mentioned Ralph Astley and Leon T66, and of course their channel is very interesting. I've got to admit, I do mainly just watch Ralph's Wargaming stuff, although I do occasionally view his naval stuff, that when he videos various naval vessels coming in, and of course Leon T66, I said about his Napoleonic Wargaming rules, and of course both of them are amazing painters, and I'm sure they've got quite big parts within the sort of community. So that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a little bit haphazard. I decided to literally do it today because I thought, well, the chances of these three chaps getting tagged by somebody else are probably quite high. So I thought I'd get in there. And yeah, until my next video, where you probably won't see my face, catch you later. Bye.